reminder, please keep your masks on the entire time, as well as sit in the demarcated areas. Shkoyach. You know, who would believe that it's been over a month without our beloved Rosh Yeshiva, and the void is real. You know, so many times over this difficult period, we've looked for comfort, for guidance, for direction. Where do we turn? Who's holding our hand? I remember the Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Tanzer, relating the story of the passing of his Rosh Yeshiva, Reb Meir Bloch. And he was in Tel's base medrash at the time, the place where he learnt. And he was in the base medrash when the news was delivered, and he witnessed the reactions of the other two senior Rosh Yeshiva. Rav Gifter, the American, he immediately stood up. He wanted to take action. He was at pains to try and do something to change the situation, even though that it was inevitable. But Rav Motel Katz, the elder Lithuanian, he just sunk into his seat. He put his hand on his head. He had no words. There was nothing that he could have done. And I must admit that I've had both these experiences. I've had both these responses. Sometimes I think to myself, surely there's some mistake. We have to do something. Surely it can't be true that the Rosh Yeshiva is no longer with us. However, when reality really sets in, we all are overcome with sadness, even an element of despair. Our heart goes out to Rebbetzin Marcia, his partner and friend for over 60 years, to Chaya, to Nechama, to Rav Baruch, Rav Dov, to Goldie, to Tziona, Brother Choni, all the son-in-laws, daughter-in-laws, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, here and all over the world. Our heart goes out to South African Jewry. Our heart goes out to world Jewry. Now, the Rosh Yeshiva was a father to so many, not in the physical sense of being a father, but he dedicated his life to so many neshamot, so many people, teaching, guiding, leading with his trademark love, his trademark warmth. Chazal teach us that one needs a balance in life in order to truly see success. A person cannot prosper with extremities. Accomplishment is real when there's harmony. A person exists when there's harmony between his guf, his body, and his neshama, his soul. When there's spirituality and his physicality unite. And our Rosh Yeshiva epitomized the ultimate balance. He was an incredible Talmid Chacham, a Torah scholar with a vision, a depth and clarity that could only lived in Hashem's world. He was respected amongst the world's greatest Gedolim. But on the other hand, he was so understanding, so accessible, so approachable to absolutely everyone who came into contact with. He was a person that Gedolei Torah lamented over, his loss all over the world. But at the same time as Gedolei Torah, every single person who knew him, Jewish, non-Jewish, young, old, they felt the exact same void. And it takes a giant, a special and unique individual to genuinely impact so many people from so many different backgrounds. This evening we're here to begin our journey of paying respect and showing gratitude to an individual who touched and left an indelible mark on so many. We begin with an audiovisual presentation where family, colleagues, and organizational leaders will pay respect and tribute to our beloved Rosh Yeshiva.
Rabbi Tanzer for me was as constant as a loving grandfather. He was the rabbi of my parents, he was the rabbi of my in-laws, and he was the only choice to officiate at our wedding. But you know, who could forget Rabbi Tanzer getting up on a Friday night again at this very podium to a packed Yeshiva College shul, putting on his talit just before he's about to start speaking, and then start his speech with his signature jokes. I mean, it's just unbelievable to think that he's no longer with us. The real differentiator with Rabbi Tanzer was his incredible love for community and as he would say, for Klal Yisrael. I mean, he must have spent endless hours on Erev Shabbat, on Fridays, and Erev Chagim, going through lists and lists and lists of people to call. You know, I actually mentioned this to Marcia during the Shiva week, and, you know, different people that were sitting around piped up, yeah, we all got calls on Erev Shabbat, we got calls on Erev Chag. And he made us all feel, every single one of us feel like we were the only person being called. He made every one of us feel so special to him. The end result, as we all know it, and as it says, you know, later in the parasha, is Kum ve'talech ba'aretz. Get up, build the land, walk in the land, and I think this is very apt to what the Tanzers achieved here in Johannesburg. The uniqueness of the Tanzers is intertwined with the uniqueness of the Yeshiva College campus. Rabbi Tanzer's love for Talmud Torah, his love for the state of Israel, his love for the Jewish people is what ultimately laid the groundwork for the Yeshiva College campus to be built into the home of religious Zionism in South Africa. And I think together with Bnei Akiva and Mizrachi as his partners, Rabbi Tanzer succeeded in building the Yeshiva College and the Yeshiva College campus into a true Makom Torah. But I think the most important thing, what we all got here at Yeshiva College, was incredible warmth and chavashaft. And the relationships and friendships we all developed at school are actually friendships for life. Our Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Tanzer, will be sorely missed. But it's our responsibility, you know, as generation being here after him, it's our responsibility to carry on his legacy. It's our responsibility to respect his legacy and to build on what he's built here so that generations after us can benefit and have the privilege and have the blessing that we had in enjoying everything him and Marcia built over all of the years in Johannesburg. Yehi Zichro Baruch.
In 1987, we arrived in Johannesburg on Shutchut, for Yeshiva College in Mizrachi. And there I found myself a new Rebbe, a new teacher, somebody who added a new dimension in my life. Even after leaving in 1991, I made a point of visiting my Rebbe every time I was in Johannesburg, in order to receive another injection of Torah, wisdom, in addition to new perspectives in life. My Rebbe created a unique kind of Mishtan. On the one hand, his Mishtan, Yeshiva College, was a place of the Torah, where the Rebbe understood the neshama of each and every pupil. Generation after generation, he had the insight to mold young students into Obdei Hashem. In his daily Dvar Torah after Tefillah, He gave his students the tools to contend with the challenges and influence of their environment. He imbued in them a love of Torah, Avodat Hashem, and Chesed. Sometimes the Rebbe was younger than his congregants, but he had the ability to understand their needs, uplift them, and bring them closer to Hashem. In Yeshiva College, he brought down the teachings of Hashem, and in his Kehillah, he brought the people up to Hashem.
One rabbi, one family, transformed an entire community. A Baal Tshuva movement, the likes of which has never been seen anywhere in the world, is a tribute to Rabbi Tanzer, this shul, this community, and this school. Not only did he build what is here, but it was the manner in which he did it. With the utmost dignity, with the utmost friendship, with the utmost calm and wisdom. Generations of lay leaders came and went, but Rabbi Tanzer was always here, the constant, always taking it upon himself, the duty and the obligation to make sure that Yeshiva College survived and flourished. It was my privilege to work with him for the last 2 years as chairman of the Board of Governors, and it never stopped to amaze me that even at his stage of life, how committed he was to this campus. Every fundraising meeting that he would insist on coming, every meeting of the Board of Governors, numerous calls of encouragement, of suggestions. It was his life. It was what he had created. It was his baby, and he had seen it grow into this flourishing community. His loss was a shock and a tragedy for all of us. The void that he's left will never, ever be replaced. But all we can do is continue to build upon the legacy that he created, one of the greatest Torah institutions in the world at the tip of Africa, something no one other than Rabbi Tanzer could have ever achieved. It was an honor and a privilege to know him, to work with him, and to be able to build on what he established so magnificently over 60 years.
First of all, he was very close to my late father-in-law, Rabbi Eloi. He used to say about my father-in-law that he was his mentor, and I saw many common characteristics and personalities between the two of them. But if I can say that this parashiyot that we are reading now, talking about Avraham Avinu, and his name was Avram, so what was the specialty of Avraham Avinu? That he was not satisfied just to be somewhere stuck and to look after his small environment or about himself. He saw that he was concerned about everybody.
To the patriarch. He was world famous as a philosopher, as a mensch. And they stood in the shura and they said, Oila l'olam she'avad manhigoi. What a loss to the world that has lost such a leader. V'oila l'sfina, they continued to say a second point. What a loss to a ship that has lost its captain. The world has lost a statesman, a Torah leader, a spokesman for Torah. But we, his family, my mom, my siblings and our families, his Talmidim, the Talmidim of his Talmidim, his institutions, we didn't just lose a statesman. We lost a seasoned captain who led with such wisdom and held together all the strands with such harmony. He understood the tides, the winds, and he understood the people. He was a man, ultimately, of great vision. When he was offered the job in 1962, one of his aunts, Glitziana, said to him at that stage, if it's such a good job, Rebbe Avraham Chaim, why don't your Rosh Yeshivas offer it to their children? Why are they sending you? My father used to always one of his favorite ideas in Bereshis is that Hashem, the Almighty, had to coax Adam Harishon into Gan Eden. And the question is, who wouldn't want to live in Gan Eden? Why did he need to vayikach, to lure him in? And he always used to answer, Gan Eden takes a lot of work. You have to toil to make it a Gan Eden. You have to toil to maintain it, to keep it. When Dad arrived, it was hardly a Gan Eden. I remember the 3 pitiful lulavim in the shul bucket for Sukkot, year after year. One for the Rov, one for the Chazan, and one for the entire community. But he didn't see that. He saw beyond that. He saw a vision for the future. He saw that you could teach Torah in South Africa. He saw that there were diamonds lying in the street. And he had a vision for the Yeshiva College. He didn't see a small gathering of people here for different reasons. What he saw was a flagship, the flagship for Torah, Yeshiva College campus. You were always his beloved flagship for Torah in Africa. You were the first to institutionalize Torah learning, the first Yeshiva high school, the first Rosh Yeshiva, the first Yeshiva Gedola, the first Torah girls high, primary, and Torah pre-primary. You were the first Eruv in South Africa, the first shul in the area, the first mikveh in the area, the biggest Shomer Shabbos shul, and the list goes on. He had a vision of chinuch, of people. The key to chinuch in our generation, he taught, our beloved father taught, was ahavto. The mitzvah, the Gemara says, not just to love the Almighty, but to make sure that through you, people love the Almighty. They look at you, they interact with you, and they say, I love this man, I love his God. That was the key to chinuch. He led with love for every individual at their level, from pre-primary to teenage, to parents, adults, friends, and grandparents. Bechavle Adam em shachem, the pasuk says in Hosea, he drew people close with cords of humanity, with ropes, bonds of love. He drew them close and he drew them up to Hashem. Yeshiva, you were always the flagship of Chavashaft, of children having great fun together, but deeply caring and nurturing, of looking out for others, especially the weaker. You were always known as a school with midas, with menschlichkeit, where people were nurtured and grown rather than cast in a mold. It's an attitude that is well known, came from the top. How he uplifted every Talmud. And this relationship from nursery school would continue for life. Just a few weeks ago, he phoned a dear lifelong friend of mine and an alumnus to congratulate him on the professional achievement. We all bask in your glory, he told him. A member of our family had achieved a success. My mother, the Rebbetzin Marcia, was his fully supportive partner in the yeshiva. Through her own brilliant Jewish history and Chumash classes, as dean of the girls' school, where she went to bat for every single child. And she ensured that so many children who didn't have a place for Shabbos, especially the hostel children, were regular guests at us for years. I remember as a boy thinking of at least 2 boys in the school that they were actually my step brothers. They were so much part of the family. The campus was formed, shaped, and built around Dad and Mom's Shabbos table. With your truly open home, Mom, your lavish gourmet meals, you forged deep bonds of friendship with parents, Talmidim, and shul members. It was deeper than friendship. It became mishpacha. Mom, you were his partner and you were also his inspiration. You kvelled from his great droshes and shiurim. You always commented on them. You always laughed twice at his jokes. First, as soon as you realized what joke he was telling, and second of all, when the olam caught it. The joy that he derived from each Talmud was palpable. When I would pop into his office after teaching and tell him enthusiastically, Mir haben feine Talmidim. I said, Dad, you still have great Talmidim. The boys love to learn. They're so edel, they're refined. They master the toises. What a joy it gave him to watch the school involved in davening, in Gemara, in exams. How much nachas. How grateful he was to each parent for entrusting your child to becoming part of our family. Anybody who davened on this campus was automatically a friend and a partner. The Rosh Yeshiva mentioned many times how much he appreciated the lay leadership stepping in at difficult times, the hours, the commitment, the courage to take responsibility in these challenging times. His gentle, giant heart beat to the rhythm of the school, his yeshiva, and the shul. He never compromised the love of his close ones, who always clamored to be at his table, each of the siblings to help in some way, just to bask in your beautiful presence. Now, as we begin to take stock of our enormous loss, truly irreplaceable, we remember how he was on our side, how he was there for us, how he cared. How do we honor his legacy? True, every Mishnah you learn, every halacha you learn, any Musa thought that you will learn in his honor will be a great ner neshama for him, and he will undoubtedly appreciate it and keep davening for each of us, his children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and Talmidim. To strengthen the Torah, the davening, and the kindness on the campus, certainly we must do. To strengthen the Torah and the Yirah Shamayim in all of our kehilas. But what really troubles me is who will uplift the brokenhearted, who will call on them regularly, sometimes for months and even years, when people are most alone and most frail. He gave so much attention and thought, so much care and consideration to that holy avodah. Perhaps, if he'll forgive me for saying so, because he never told people what to do, perhaps, if each of us will make one outreach call each week, just somebody who's alone, somebody who's struggling, just to say we care. Perhaps that will be a great tribute to his legacy. Yehi Zichroi Baruch. May his memory be a true bracha and a true inspiration to all of us.
That Rabbi Avraham Tanzer Zt was ahuv lemala v'nechmad lemata. Beloved above in Shamayim, v'nechmad lemata, and endeared below. But I think the correct translation of the word nechmad was endearing. He was endearing below because he made everyone feel special. He built people up. The reason why Rabbi Avraham Tanzer Zt was ahuv lemala, was beloved above in Shamayim, was because he made every person feel special. He built them up. We all need to have self-worth. We need to feel special. The greatness of Rabbi Avraham Tanzer Zt was when he walked down the street, he greeted every person, he recognized them, he made them feel special. That was the gadlut, the geonut of the late Rosh Yeshiva. He made every single person feel special. I cannot tell you how many times when I was on the staff of Yeshiva College, I walked into his office to discuss a certain matter, and I came out with a feeling of elation because the Rosh Yeshiva built me up. Whatever I was going there to discuss, I came out feeling uplifted.
Pirkei Avos starts off with how Moses received the Torah from Sinai, how he passed it on to Joshua, Joshua to the elders, and it goes all the way to Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi. His father-in-law had a level of empathy that was absolutely uncanny. If you had a problem, he was able to sense it. He was able to let you know that he knew that you had a problem. He felt for you. He didn't want to invade, but if you needed his help, he was there. One thing I witnessed in my father-in-law and mother-in-law's home was an open home where people were judged positively. In Pirkei Avos it says, run to do a small mitzvah because you don't know what you're accomplishing. One thing I witnessed in my in-law's home was people ran to do mitzvahs. My father-in-law, my mother-in-law, the home was full of mitzvahs. In Pirkei Avos it says, love learning Torah. The Tanzer home was full of Torah learning.
Okay. One of my friends told me during the Shiva that his maid asked him on the day of the Levaya why there were so many cars at the shul. He told her that the rabbi had passed away, and he could see that she was visibly upset. He asked her, why are you so upset? So she said that whenever she went to the school to fetch the kids, if my father saw her, he would ask how she's doing and ask how she's feeling. For over 30 years we had the privilege of having my mother's mother, Bobby Judah, living together with us in the same house. The way my father Zatzal treated her and the kavod he gave her was exceptional. He made it look so easy and normal that only now when I look back do I realize how unbelievable it actually was. In all my years of growing up, I have one vague memory of my father getting angry with me. He just didn't get angry or lose his temper. He was an Ohev Shalom and Roidev Shalom. Even if he had to be tough and put his foot down, afterwards he would go out of his way to make Shalom, and he wouldn't allow machlokes to prevail. Many people called to tell me that they too feel that they've lost their father with my father's passing. Even people who had no contact with him for years. He was an integral part of their life and the people they become and the families that we're building. One of my neighbors in Harnof told me that his son-in-law, who is a former student of my father, who today is a big Talmud Chacham in his own right, who studied in many of Israel's finest yeshivas, he told his father-in-law that my father had the greatest influence on his life. My father was an exceptional human being who inspired all who came into contact with him. The way to hold on to inspiration, I believe, is if we take upon ourselves something small, learning from his ways, his midas, his amazing vav, and work on making it part of us. That way we will become better people and make the world a better place to live in, which was something that he always said, and will also be an eternal aliyah for his neshama. Maybe a Melis Yoshef, my dear mother, the entire family, his Talmidim, congregants, and Klal Yisrael. Yehi Zichroi Baruch.
It's very difficult to say goodbye to my husband. He really was the most amazing man to partner with. He was compassionate, he was kind, he was generous. I think he was the epitome of the most perfect human being. The last 7 months were actually a special present that we had together because we spent these 7 months in isolation dodging the corona bullet. And usually my husband is always busy with other people, with their problems, with teaching, with dealing with the world. And these 7 months we just spent together ourselves, and it was the most beautiful experience that we could have had. We both loved it, even though he was very much a people's person. He loved just being home alone, and the two of us just were together by ourselves. And it was like Hashem was giving us a goodbye present. He gave us 7 months, which was really like a year or two because of these.
My first recollection of Rabbi Tanzer, very interesting. I was a young fella, just came to Tells, and I remember that he had just got engaged to Marcia, and she was being driven by him in an open-air sedan. I don't know, just an interesting memory that I had. We didn't have much to do with each other at that time. I was saw that he learned with the Baruch Sorotsky, one of the Rosh Yeshivas, the Baruch Sorotsky and Rabbi Shalom. And I realized, and I do realize, and I know that he was clever then, Talmud Chacham, and worthy of having such a chavrusa. When he was asked by Rav Michael Katz, Chaim Mordechai Katz, to go to South Africa, I vaguely remember that we talked a little bit, but not much. But then, a few years later, after I had already been married, learned in the Kollel for close to 4 years, and been a Rebbe in the Mechina, he came back to Tells. And he came back to Tells because he wanted to bring somebody out to help him in South Africa. And then he talked to me. I remember that one of my dear teachers of Shalom, Rabbi Eliezer Levi, gave him a sound and a good report about myself. And I feel indebted to Rabbi Chaim for bringing me back to South Africa.
So for me, I really feel that I've lost a mentor and someone who guided and gave me so much love and wisdom. And so it's really it's personal. not a sense, I know on a communal level, we've lost one of the great rabbis of the history of the South African Jewish community, but on a personal level, it's also been a deep sense of loss for me personally. The life of Rabbi Tanzer, because in November of 1962, the Telzer Rosh Yeshiva of Motel Katz came to him and said, there's a school in South Africa, the Yeshiva College School, and it needs an associate Rosh Yeshiva, and will you go to South Africa? And he went to discuss that with his Rebbetzin, with Marcia Shetibadil L'chaim, and they did everything together. And so when paying tribute to Rabbi Tanzer, our thoughts and prayers are with Marcia, and our gratitude with Marcia for everything that they did together as a couple, because they did it all together as a couple, as a partnership, as a husband and wife, as a rabbi and a rebbetzin. They didn't just predict the future, they created the future together. And what Rabbi Tanzer did was then to build a shul in a campus, and the school, which was just a fledgling school at the time, Yeshiva College, he built it up into an incredible edifice and institution of Torah learning, and educated generations of students. And he changed the trajectory of so much that is in our South African Jewish community by his efforts, which he did with gentleness and with kindness. And that's, when I was thinking, to me, when I think about Rabbi Tanzer, I think about Abraham, our forefather, because in the same way that Avraham, our forefather, was an incredible pioneer, and he went out to a country he didn't know, and he went to build a whole world around the values that God gave him, so too Rabbi Avraham Tanzer did exactly the same thing. But he did it in the same way as Avraham, because Abraham is defined as Avinu. He's called Avraham Avinu, Abraham our father, and Rabbi Tanzer was a father to this community.
The Gemara says we don't make a Hesped for tzaddikim, but there are deeds in life that you can say. By him I can say something else. The Pasuk says, "Mekishma, v'hoyu advar ma'ila shalechi b'taf chayim al levavecha." If you really mean your Yiddishkeit, Meshinantam al-Velecha Gimaluk, how you teach your children. He had Baruch Hashem 2 sons. One is the real Goan in South Africa. One who set up a kollel, which is hundreds of big Talmidei Chachamim are given by him what they need to be able to sit and learn. So certainly that proves more than anything what he really wanted in his life. And now today, where it's our duty is only one duty, only the Hesped, it should continue.
Sometime before the turn of the 20th century, there was a famous newspaper, the famous newspaper in the Jewish world, which came out of Warsaw. It was called Hatzafira. It was actually a Haskalah newspaper. And the editor of Hatzafira decided that he wanted to interview 4 rabbis to ask them what they considered to be the key responsibility of a rabbi. Fascinating article. He was not himself a Dati person, and he interviewed 4 giants. So first he went to Rav Rafael Shapiro, who was the Volozhin of Rosh Yeshiva, and he asked him, what is the most important thing that a rabbi should do? And he said, Rosh Yeshiva said, learning, Limud Torah. And then he went to Rav Yitzchak Blazer, one of the 3 great students of Rav Yisrael Salanter, one of the great Balei Musar. And he said, Rav Yitzchak Blazer, Rav Yitzchak Petterberger said, Musar, the Rav has to give Musar to his people. And then he went to the interview the Aruch HaShulchan, Rav Yechiel Michal Epstein, and he said he was the great posek of one of the great poskim of Lithuania, of Lithuania, and he said, halacha. A Rav has to be a Baal halacha. He has to paskin shaylos. And the 4th rabbi that he went to was Reb Chaim Soloveitchik, Reb Chaim Brisker. So he went to Reb Chaim Brisker and he asked him, what is the most important job of a rabbi? And Reb Chaim said, in true Reb Chaim form, what did the other 3 say? So he told them. So he said, learning, Learning Torah, of course. Everybody has to learn Torah. Mitzvah Talmud Torah, Keneged Kulam, we all have to study Torah. Musar, giving drushes, encouraging people to live a firmer lifestyle, to improve the quality of their mitzvahs. A whole sugya in Gemara Echad. Everybody has to do that. Halacha, everybody has to know how to paskin a shayla, shmai tzalib ilchasa, to live according to halacha. But a rav, a rabbi, surely has to do all three of these things. But what's unique about the role of a rabbi is that he has to care about the needs of every one of his people. He has to be with his people. That is the unique function of a rav.
It is so difficult for me to imagine my life without the influence and impact of the Rosh Yeshiva Rabbi Tanzer and also the Yeshiva College campus. So difficult to talk about the Rosh Yeshiva in past tense, to reflect on his life and legacy. He was somebody in so many ways larger than life, encompassed so much of life, and really so difficult. But when reflecting on what to say, I know so deeply my life would have been so different as many thousands of others without the impact of this incredible human being that we were blessed to have for so many years in South Africa, and I was blessed to have for so many years, like thousands of others, in my life for so many decades. It goes back to when I was a 13-year-old boy in 1983, when I was accepted to Yeshiva College as our family was becoming more religious, and I came in Standard 6, grade 8 at the time, Standard 6 it was called, and came as a boy whose family was becoming more observant. And boy oh boy, how did those 5 years at Yeshiva College change and impact my life in so many positive ways. And front and center in that experience was the towering example of the Rosh Yeshiva Rabbi Tanzer on a daily basis, davening with us, guiding us, and inspiring us.
Flame has so much meaning in Yiddishkeit. It represents the soul of the departed, as well as the strength and the resilience of Torah. And for as long as I can remember, the Rosh Yeshiva had a candle burning in his home 24 hours a day to signify the power and protection of Torah. This evening, as we light the candles to perpetuate the memory of the Rosh Yeshiva, I'd like to call up Aaron, Nachi, Moshe, Yosef, Yishol, and Yehuda to kindle these lights in his honor. The Rosh Yeshiva had a koyach tefillah that was unparalleled. No one can forget walking into Mincha on a Shabbos, and the humming was in this corner of the beautiful tefillot, the Tehillim, the learning, the Nach. And for this we recite Tehillim to uplift the memory of the Rosh Yeshiva, to go about and give him the true honor he deserves. We continue with the recitation of Tehillim that can be found in the booklets in front of you. We'll be reading the Tehillim responsively. I'd like to call up Chief Rabbi Warren Goldstein to read the first kapitel, chapter number 20.
120 or 121? Shir Lamalo says, Sinai Alari, Mein Yavo Ezri. Ezri, Meim Adonai, Yosef Shamayim Varet. Al Yitein Lamot Raglech, Al Yanum Shomrecha. Hine lo Yanum Velo Yishan Shomer Yisrael. Adonai Shomrecha, Adonai Tzilcha, Al Yad Yaminecha. Yoimam Hashemesh lo yakeka v'yareach balayla. Adonai yishmorcha mikol ra yishmor es nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzeischa v'echa me'ata ve'ad olam.
Rabbi Levi Weinberg, Kapitel number 130.
Shir hamalois mimamakim krosicho Adonai. Adonai shimo v'koili tien oznecho kashuvois lekol tachnunoi. Im avoinois tishmor yo Adonai miyamoid. Ki imcho haslicho leman tivorei. Ki vizti Adonai ki vizto nafshi v'lidvoroi hoicholti. Nafshi l'Adonai mishomrim laboiker shomrim laboiker. Yachel Yisrael el Adonai, ki im Adonai hachesed, v'harbei imoi fidus. V'hu yivde es Yisrael mikol avoinoi tov.
Rabbi Johnny Altman, Kapitel number 20. Page number 8 in the booklets.
למנצח מזמור לדוד. יענך אדוני ביום צרה, ישגבך השם אלוהי יעקב. ישלח עזרך מקודש ומציון יסעדך. יזכור כל מנחסיך וילעשך ידשנס אלוה. ייתן לך כלבבך וכל עצתך ימלא. נרננה בישועתך ובשם אלוהינו נדגל ימלא אדוני כל משאלותיך. יעתה ידעתי כי יושיע אדוני משיחי יענה משמי קודשי בגבורוס ישע ימיני. אלה ברכב ואלה בסוסים ואנחנו בשם אדוני אלוהינו נזכיר. המה קראו ונפלו ואנחנו קמנו ונסעדד. Adonai Yoshia, Hamelech Yaneinu B'yom Kareinu.
Akiva Fox, head boy of Yeshiva College, with the last kapitel, number 142, on page number 11.
Maskil David Viotov Amara Tefila. Vakoli el Adonai Ezak, Koli el Adonai et Chanan. Eshboch lefanav sichi, tzarati lefanav agid. Vitatef alai ruchi, vatayadat nitivati, va'orach zo alech tamnu pachli. Habit yamin ur'ei ve'ein li makir, avad manos mimeni, ein doresh lenafshi. Za'akti elech Adonai amarti, ata machzi chalki be'eretz hachayim. Hakshiva al rinati ki daloti ma'od, hatileni merdafai ki amtsu mimeni. Hotzia mimasker nafshi lohodot et shemecha, biachtiru tzadikim ki tigmol alai.
Just before we dive in Mariv, I'd just like to thank the following people for the incredible input this evening: to Rebbetzin Natalie, to Jolene, to Avril, to Levi and his entire team, to Alex Carley, to Cheryl and the team at Mama. A big thank you to the grade 11s and the matrics at Yeshiva College for all their assistance. You know, tonight, it's not only about remembering the unbelievable achievements and the impact that the Rosh Yeshiva had on Jewry, but it's about taking these incredible qualities and trying to inculcate them into our lives as well. We need to treasure these memories, treasure the memories of the Rosh Yeshiva. We need to keep them as a beacon of light. We need to inculcate them into our lives. We need to instill these values in our own lives and learn from his amazing attributes. May his positivity, his friendliness, his loyalty, his courage be a support and a guide for all of us. Yehi Zichra Baruch. May his memory be a blessing. We conclude with Mariv.
כי המלכות שלך היא אלוהים נתינתך וכנה מלך אלוהיך ברוך אתה אדוני המלך וקדוש תמיד נמלך עלינו לעולם ועד במקום מעשיו ודאו יקדש שמך כל מה תברח לישראל ימליך מלכות וחייך וגמלך ונבלך ואת ישראל והגדול בזמן קודם דיברו Yitadar 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 Medekucha Belief Rodela Khasa Shasa Dos Khasa Nelamasa Damiranda Madiru Amen.
We ask the Shalom,